Let's imagine two people. One retires comfortably in their early 60s, another with exactly the same income and the same career works years longer but for less retirement income. So in this video, I'll walk you through what separates them, and if I was starting from scratch in 2026, how I'd try to steer towards that better path. Now, the difference isn't down to luck. It isn't necessarily about fund picks. It comes down to a handful of decisions that most UK starters seldom get told about. But also, getting them wrong could make you drift towards a worse outcome over many years. Today's video is sponsored by Trading 212, a UK commission-free investment platform. Now, before I get into specifics, I want to focus on the most important decisions. And somewhat controversially, I'd say that there are just two. One of them is the percentage of your income which you save, and the second one is the percentage of your returns that quietly leaks away to fees. Now, both of those compound silently over the course of your working life, which is usually around 30 years. And I think most people starting out with investment underestimate both of them. And that's because 2 percentage points sounds like nothing. But over a working life, 2 percentage points are the difference between comfort and austerity. So let's start with the savings rate, because this is the one most people get wrong. Now, if you look at the chart beside me, you can see two pots growing over a period of 30 years, and they're drawn from the same salary of £40,000. Now, the investments have the same return. That's about 5% in real terms. In other words, the return above the rate of inflation. And the only difference is that one of them saves 8% of their pay and the other saves just 6%. Now, after 30 years, the 8% saver ends up with roughly £212,000. The 6% saver ends up with about £159,000. That's a gap of £53,000 just from those 2 percentage points. Now, saving 2% more of a £40,000 salary is about £800 extra a year, and that's a sacrifice of about £2 a day, which eventually buys you £53,000 in retirement. That's the trade. That's how much that extra savings rate is worth. Now, there's a second factor, and it's about timing, which is when you start investing. If we look at this chart beside me, you can see two savers chasing the same target pot at the age of 65. One of them starts at age 25 and contributes £4,000 a year every year until they reach retirement. The other one starts at 35, just 10 years later. What's interesting is that the late starter has to do catch-up. To hit the same pot, the saver who starts at 35 has to contribute around £7,300 a year. That's nearly double the annual commitment of the early starter, and that's for a delay of just 10 years. The late starter has to sacrifice almost £60,000 more of their hard-earned cash over the course of their lifetime just to end up with exactly the same final balance. Or in other words, 10 years of compounding is worth roughly the same as doubling your contribution rate for the rest of your working life. That's why I keep saying start early, even if you can only put a little bit aside. The first decade does a lot of the heavy lifting. Now let's turn to the second factor, which is fees. Fees compound against you the same way returns compound for you. And that's because they come out of your pot every year, year after year, for decades. Every pound you pay in fees today is a pound that won't be compounding for the rest of your life. If we look at the chart beside me, you can see two pots. These are identical in every way. You have the same £4,000 a year going in. You've got the same 7% gross return. The only difference is the total expense ratio, or TER. That might be what the fund manager and your investment platform and your financial advisor charge you in total. One pot pays 0.15%, the other pays 1.5%. Now, after 30 years, the low fee pot is worth about £367,000. The expensive one is worth about £290,000. That's a £78,000 transfer from you, the saver, to the finance industry. So that 1.35%, although it didn't sound like much, added up to a huge difference in outcome. Now, I think the trouble with fees is that they're quoted in percentages, and percentages are pretty abstract. 0.15 versus 1.5%, they both sound small. So we built a tool to fix that. And if we look at the screen beside me, this is GULP. It stands for Gains Ultimately Lost to Professionals. And it's a free tool. You put in your contributions, your time horizon, and the fees you're paying, and then it shows you the return leakage in pounds. Now, that's not a percentage, it's how much of the money your investments have made, which you're handing over to the finance industry. I'll link it below. And you can run your own numbers, share it with your friends and family. And if you've never seen your fees in pounds, the figure usually sobers you up, or perhaps it could even make you gulp. Now let's look at platform fees, because there are three kinds and they don't all behave the same way. Some platforms charge you a percentage of your portfolio every year. Others charge a flat amount. That's the same number of pounds whether your pot's 1,000 or 100,000. And some charge no platform fee at all. The cheapest choice shifts depending on the size of your pot. Now, if we look at the chart beside me, you can see what I mean. A widely used flat fee platform, as I make this video in 2026, charges about £72 a year. The percentage fee platforms at around 0.4 to 0.45% cost more and more as your pot gradually grows. The crossover sits somewhere between £16,000 and £18,000. In other words, under about £20,000, percentage fees are absolutely fine. Above that, flat fee or zero fee platforms quietly save you thousands over the course of a working life. Now, one of those zero fee platforms is today's sponsor, Trading 212. And I've been using Trading 212 Stocks and Shares ISA for several years, and I love it. It charges no account fees, no subscription fees, and it offers over 13,000 ETFs and stocks. And my favorite Trading 212 feature is pies. You can build a self-contained portfolio inside your stocks and shares ISA, set it once, and then rebalance with just one click. You can drip feed into it with regular investing, and you can also reinvest dividends automatically. Their ISA is also flexible, which means you can withdraw cash within a tax year and then put it back without affecting that year's ISA allowance. And as a viewer of PensionCraft, you get a special offer from Trading 212 where you can claim free fractional shares worth up to £100. Just open an account, verify it, fund it, and use my name as a promo code, RAMIN, RAMIN, and you'll find a link to that offer in the description below. Right, so now let's look at the account sequence. And in the UK, the order in which you fill these matters almost as much as the funds which you put into them. And if we look at the diagram beside me, you can see 6 steps. The first one is an emergency fund. That's to cover 3 to 6 months of essentials, and it's in cash. Yes, cash is a drag on long-term returns, but without it, an emergency during a market drop could force you to sell your investments at a loss. The second is your employer pension match. Now, if your employer adds money when you do, that's an immediate 50 to 100% return. And that's before the government adds tax relief. The third is a lifetime ISA or LISA, which is specifically for buying your first home or waiting until you're 60. Now, if you're under 40, the government tops you up by 25% on up to £4,000 a year. And the window to open one closes at 40. Clearly, I don't qualify, so don't miss it. And the lifetime ISA is changing. The government plans to replace it with a new first-time buyer-only ISA around April 2028, and they're going to drop the retirement option and the withdrawal penalty by only paying the bonus when you actually buy a house. Under current plans, today's LISA rules stay in place until then, so if you're between 18 and 39 and hope to buy a first home, then it's still worth opening one now and putting in a small amount to start the 12-month clock. The fourth is the Stocks and Shares ISA. Now you can put up to 20,000 a year in here, and that's all completely tax-free forever, and you can access it whenever you want. The fifth is your broader pension. Either you could open a SIP, or you could just increase your workplace pension, or you could have the two side by side. Now, this is a really useful tax shelter, especially if you're a higher rate taxpayer. But the catch is your money's locked in until your late 50s. And then finally, a general investment account, or GIA. Now, this one comes last, and it's only when everything that's tax sheltered is totally full. So think of this order as your foundation. Don't build the roof before the ground floor, and don't skip the first two to chase the later ones. Now let's turn to allocation, and that's usually equity or stocks versus bonds. And there's an old rule that says 100 minus your age is how much you put into equity. And I think that's broadly fine, but it's certainly not the only valid strategy. And if you look at the chart beside me, you can see three shapes, or glide paths as we call them, that all work pretty well. The first is the conventional descent, so you start off with lots of equity early on, gradually you shift to bonds as you age. The second holds high equity right through accumulation and only de-risks when you're close to retirement. And the third, the rising glide path, actually starts more cautious and then adds equity through the course of retirement. Which one's right for you depends on your age and more on how much volatility you can stomach without selling. And I've linked to deeper videos on this topic below. For the funds themselves, I try to keep it really simple. Now, a cheap global equity tracker is the core of that, plus a safe fund for the bond side, or maybe a single multi-asset fund that does both of those for you. If we look at our cheapest funds tracker, which is for our premium website members beside me, this updates regularly with the lowest cost options in each different category. Now, I'm not going to name a fund here because the cheapest one changes all the time, but I have made a video about that recently, which you'll see linked to below. Now let's turn to what erodes the gains. But there are 5 mistakes that I see new investors make that quietly compound against them for years. And if we look at the grid beside me, the first one is home bias. The UK is roughly 4% of global equity market, but UK retail investors typically hold far more. Now, unless the UK outperforms the rest of the world, which it's failed to do over the last century, that underperformance could compound in the decades ahead. Another is buying individual stocks. There's research by someone called Bessenbinder who found that 57% of US stocks underperformed what was essentially a cash rate, and that was over the period from 1926 to 2016. The reason for that is that a handful of names drive the market, and if you pick the wrong ones, well, you'll end up lagging cash. Also, there's cash drag. Now, cash feels safe, but inflation eats it. And if you are going to be parking your money for a long period of time, that money usually belongs in equities. Another is leverage. Now, it amplifies losses faster than it amplifies gains often, and the maths is simply stacked against most retail traders like you and I who use it. And then finally, crypto speculation. Now, it's fine in a fund portfolio, but it could be ruinous in your core. Which brings me nicely to the fund portfolio. Now, if we look at this diagram beside me, this is how I think about speculation. 90% of your money goes in the core. You keep it cheap, diversified, you set it up once and then just leave it alone and contribute to it. The other 10%, that's the fund portfolio where you can try to beat the core, but probably like me, you won't. Now that can have anything you want in it, such as crypto, individual stocks, themes, sectors. Now the core is for retirement, and the fund portfolio is for learning and play. I keep the fund portfolio at 10% or less of my overall investments, and I keep it in a separate account. I never mix it with the rest of the core. I'd say the test is this. If your fund pot went to zero tomorrow, would you still be on track for a good retirement? If the answer is yes, the size is right. If it's no, you're not running a fund pot, you're running a casino. So in conclusion then, start early, save a meaningful percentage of your salary, and keep your fees low. My view is that the structure does almost all of the work, and then the specific fund choice matters less once you have that structure right. But let me know in the comments, are you already started on your investment journey, or is something holding you back? Now don't forget the sponsor of today's video, Trading 212. If you want to claim free fractional shares worth up to £100, just create an account, verify it, fund it, and then use my name as the promo code RAMIN. And you'll find a link to that in the description below. And, as always, thank you for listening.